Thank you. Thank you. That's what I call mini thanks, because it's a short bit of what feels like grateful music, gratitude music. And I'm grateful to be here, and I'm grateful that you came. And I would like to play a bunch more music that I made that uses this strumming technique that I made up, which I call flying pizzicato. I actually discovered after I thought of that name for it that somebody else had already made up that name, and it turns out that he was a great pedagogue who I knew, a violin teacher who I knew in Illinois. When I was a kid, I was in one of his pedagogy films for how to play with this, the bow. I don't remember what I was playing in that film, but it was one of his films. Paul Rowland made this wonderful series of instructional books before the Suzuki approach was a thing. Pretty sure. Oh, I should use this. Because this is all being recorded. eMedia, thank you eMedia for making this performance possible and for recording everything. Full disclosure, I'm partly using this occasion today and the recording that will be made available to me, and as well as broadcast for anybody to watch through their wonderful service that they have online. I'm using it for to document what I do with the cello, in particular without the bow. So there's not going to be so much bowed playing in today's performance, but I'm holding it now, and I might actually use it. Let's see if I can find a piece to play with it. Something familiar. Tuning. How about that famous Bach piece? There's the prelude in G major, the very first movement of the first suite that Bach wrote for the cello, solo cello. So the cello was designed because of this, for this, everything about it, almost everything about it, that makes it a cello and makes the bowed string instruments of the violin family. Because of the bow, they're even called bowed string instruments. But, as you know, things that were designed for one purpose can be used for other purposes. And sometimes it seems that something designed specifically for one purpose works really well for a purpose it wasn't even imagined by the makers. That's been very helpful for me because also as a guitarist, I love strumming, I love rhythm, and making intricate and meaningful voices, relationships between musical voices that are kind of talking to one another. So on the cello, it's possible to strum the cello in a way that, because it only has 4 strings, things are in a way, the limits are very helpful. On a guitar, so many strings. But here, I figured this, I used to play with my finger as if it were a pick. I would hold as if I had a pick in my hand, and I would just use this finger, first fingertip. But then the nail makes kind of a clanky sound this direction, and then the flesh in this direction. Hear that difference? You know, it's okay, and sometimes it works really well. I used that, but one day I was lazy about doing this because I used to play, just fiddle around, as it were. And I let my thumb loose and I started doing this, which is not unusual. Guitarists do it all the time. But somehow with the cello and the way that things evolved, I found that it liberated my thinking and feeling about how to make music on the cello in a certain way. Like the first piece I played, I made after I figured that out. But before I figured it out, as a kid playing the cello, I was using the bow, and then once in a while, as many kids do, and people who mess around with the instrument, they'll use especially the cello as a bass instrument, you know. It's nice, it has a bass-ish voice, so it's fun that way. And I used to play around with this groove. Let's see. That sort of sound. And I used to sing dun 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 doo-doo-dum, doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo, that sort of thing. And I left it behind, went to school, conservatory and everything, learned to play using the bow and all the classical music that came with it. And when I came out the other side, I started to make up my own music because that's really what I wanted to do anyway. And so I thought, what about that piece? I realized that I should try to play the melody instead of sing it. Play it on here at the same time as the bass line. So I worked at it, and this is what I came up with. I call this decibede because D, C, B, D are the first 4 notes of the piece.
Thanks. So that is more traditional strumming. I mean, plucking. Nothing unusual, nothing super unusual about it, except that I'm playing a melody and a bass line at the same time on a cello without the bow. So for me, that was moving in the direction I wanted to go, which was to make rhythmic music, rhythmically based music that was well organized. I mean, I also played the guitar. I was in rock bands and things, but I always felt that the disorder and the competing interests of the players meant that the music was kind of a compromise. At least my experience was. And that was okay. I liked playing, but I wanted to make music that was more coherent. And like classical music is coherent. You know, the Amadeus movie or play where they're backstage and the prince says, well, too many notes. And Amadeus, Mozart says, I feel that there were exactly the right number of notes. And for me, I wanted to make music that was rhythmically based, rhythmically driven and simple, except using more architecturally more solid, more intricate relationships between the voices. So that's what I'm up to here. So actually, the first piece that I wrote using this strumming technique was one of the more complicated ones that I've done. This is the beginning of a longer piece that uses looping. I didn't bring my looper today. It's simpler to just play like this. This is called Bitterroot, the prelude. And this is, as I said, the first complicated piece that I wrote for strummed cello, using what I call flying pizzicato. Here is a little exercise that I made up. I partly called it an exercise because it's so short that it doesn't seem to have the status of a full-length piece. So this is micro minor and micro major. Yeah, I keep trying to extend those pieces and add new parts, and it always just starts to sound like it's pretending to be the original thing. And maybe sometime it'll suggest how to extend it without getting too fancy, because it sort of lives in its own miniature. It's a miniature. That's what it is. It's a set of miniatures. Oh, miniature makes the lights go on. Nice. Are we done? I love a good groove. People do, right? I mean, I think I play very often for dancers. I improvise using my looper. I play for dance, and there's a lot of that going on in this part of the world. And every month in Williamsburg and in Boston and Montague, lots of places around here. So, and I love doing that, improvising, making up stuff. But part of what makes it possible to play for 2 hours at a time and completely improvise and gives dancers enough to work with is to use the looper and to create patterns. So I might just, I start off just whatever comes out of my hands. I kind of say, okay, hands, what do you want to play today? And they just go. And then I listen, I say, okay, that's very nice. Can you make it a little more civilized and or danceable? So that happens, and then I record that with a foot pedal. Once something arises that is inspiring to me and has enough sense about it, and then I'll play along over that and sometimes add more layers and go to another section and then come back to this one. So it's a practice. But before I had a looper, I would just, as I have shown, I can create grooves here, and that can be bass lines, it can be melodies. So one day I was playing with this groove, and it sort of jumped out and at me and said, "Make a piece out of this. It's not just a groove. I'm a whole piece." So you'll hear the groove going through the piece, 3 notes, but on top of that, a lot else happens. And I call this cello commotion.
questions? Really? No? Okay.
Do you ever collaborate, or is it too chaotic?
I have collaborated. I do. Mostly duos with other players. Collaborated with John Hughes for a bunch of years. He's a Brattleboro kora player. Wonderful, brilliant musician. And he and I made a bunch of pieces and played a bunch of concerts, and that was satisfying. I played with a handpan player sometimes, Levi Gershkowitz. You know, handpan? He looks like the flying saucer, and it has little facets on it. It's sort of the reverse of a steel pan. It's got a shape like this, and then it's shaped like that underneath. It's metal, and you hit the facets, and it makes these beautiful sounds. Look up handpan, or you know. And if you go to my website, you can hear a little bit of something we did and learn more about it there. Yeah, wonderful sounding instrument. And other collaborations. I'm playing some concerts with Dan Kennedy, who's a wonderful pianist. That's coming up mostly in the new year. Just figuring that out. So, yeah. And you? You play?
Not cello.
What do you play?
Several instruments.
Oh.
Just the normal level. Some guitar, and trying to learn mandolin and piano, trumpet, things like that.
Piano trumpet. That would be an interesting instrument. A piano trumpet. How would that look or play? I don't know. Strings on a trumpet. Here is here's a piece I wrote with the bow, and this one I wrote as the accompaniment to a dance, which I was participating in, meaning I was participating in the dance while I played the piece. So here's the story. My first wife was a very funny, talented dancer and monologist and creative person. We collaborated for a long time. And her name was B.J. Goodwin. She and I made pieces where some of which I was involved in the theater of the piece as a musician, which was always fascinating to me, and got to experiment with that with her. So in this piece, she plays an aging ballerina, tutu and all, and I'm the accompanist off to the side. I usually would be over here and on the dance floor. She would come in from over here, just kind of making it across the stage, but needing something to help her stay stable. So she grabbed the scroll of my cello, which pulled me off of my chair, which was one of those piano stools that rotates, and she pulled me off my chair. I had my end pin retracted, so there wasn't anything keeping me from holding it with my legs and waddling around the stage for the duration of the piece after that. And our two characters fell in love by the end of the piece through this planned accident. I always think of her as plucking the last chord, because that's what she did. She would reach over after spinning me around on the stool, pluck the last chord. She died 20 years ago, breast cancer. B.J. Goodwin. So this is always for her. And it's called Pas de Trois, which translates dance for three. Thank you. Was a workout then. Now it still is. So there's a tune that's always
bugged me, bothered me. Said, this belongs somewhere in your repertoire, and I did not understand how until one day I was playing with this groove, a lot like the early one that I showed you, that I did when I was in high school. But this groove, it was, well, I'll play it in a minute. But the groove didn't seem to have anything to do with the tune that said, put these together. So I put them together, and they fit in some very interesting, strange way. So here is a tune you'll probably recognize. With an accompaniment, you probably won't. While away the hours, conferring with the flowers. I'm going to start that again. I could while away the hours, conferring with the flowers, consulting with the rain. And my head I'd be scratching while my thoughts were busy hatching. If I only had a brain. I'd unravel every riddle for any individual in trouble or in pain. With the thoughts I'd be thinking I could be another Lincoln if I only had a brain. Oh, I could could tell you why. The ocean's near the shore. I could think of things I've never thunk before, and then I'd sit and think some more. Just a nothing, my head all full of stuffing, my heart all full of pain. I would dance and be merry, life would be a ding-a-dairy if I only had a brain. Oh, I could tell you why the ocean's near the shore. I could think of things I've never thunk before, and then I'd sit and think some more. I'd sit and think somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly over the rainbow. Why, then oh why can't I sit and think some more? Sit and think some more. Gosh, it would be awful pleasing to reason out the reason for things I can't explain. Maybe then I'd deserve you and be even worthy of you if I only had a brain, if I only had a brain. Thank you. I have just one more little piece to play for you, which is the first one, only with an extra part to it. This is Many Thanks. Thank you for coming. Thanks again.